In this session, we're going to dive into the world of image creation, a place where just by writing a few sentences, you can create any image that's in your mind, from a realistic portrait to a fantasy or surreal world. But everything depends on one thing, a well-crafted and engineered prompt. So what is prompt engineering? ChatGPT is an intelligent model that understands human language and you can have a conversation with it. But other image generation models don't have this capability, so you need to give them a carefully engineered text so they fully understand what you want. Prompt engineering isn't just about saying, make me a cat. Prompt engineering means specifying the type of cat, the cat's weight, even the cat's appearance, whether it's day or night, where it's located, and providing a complete description of all these things in the form of a text. So this is a general guide for creating visual prompt, where each section is briefly explained. You can study it, and later on we'll go into detail about all these elements and the examples provided. In this section, we'll examine the order of elements in the proper prompt together. As you can see, the first thing we need to specify is the name of our character. Then we have to determine the characteristics that the character has. After that, we need to define the pose and action the character is performing, and then specify the details of the character, such as clothing details, accessories, facial expression, and the texture that should be present. Next, we need to move on to the environment and background elements and specify the artistic style that the image should have. Finally, we define the technical details and the composition of the picture. Alright guys, I've prepared a prompt structure for you, which I'll put in the description. Now we're going to go through some examples together to see how we should fill them out. Later, you can try it yourself, create your own examples, generate their images, and see how they turn out. So, as we said, the first thing is the name of the character, or our main character. I asked ChatGPT to give an example for each of these elements so we can review them together. Now, the examples it gave for the main character were things like a young Iranian girl, a robotic chef, or a warrior monk. The second thing is the pose or stance of our character, which could be standing, sitting, or for example, jumping. Next is the action or activity that the character is performing. For example, pouring coffee, holding a sword, or painting a wall. Then it described the clothing, saying the character could be wearing armor or traditional Iranian attire with golden embroidery. Next is the character's facial expression, which could be serious, smiling, or angry. Now here, some accessories have been added to our character. For example, it says the character could have a backpack, wear a crown, or be wearing glasses. The next element is the environment, where it describes the setting in which the character is placed. For example, it says the character could be in an old market at sunset, or on a cyberpunk street in Tokyo, or even in a kitchen filled with steam. The next option is the background element, meaning you should describe the items you want to appear in the background, like next to your character, in the corner of the ground, or in the sky. Here, for example, it says there could be a crowded crowd, some ancient ruins, or neon billboards behind the character. The next option determines the color theme of your image. For instance, it could be dark red and gold, or maybe blue and white. The next option specifies the artistic style of your image. And now, if you want to create a realistic image, you either need to specify that, or you can say, for example, that it should be cinematic photography or taken with an iPhone camera. And if you want other styles, you can make it cartoonish or animated, or say, for example, that it should be a digital painting. The next option, which complements the previous one or the artistic style, is lighting. Now, to know what kinds of lighting exist, you can search for them, pick out a few good ones, and use them in your prompts. For example, backlighting or soft light. And now you can say that it should have cinematic lighting or dramatic shadows, or for example, triangular lighting. There are so many different options and you can search for them and try each one out. The next option is the texture or surface of your image. For example, if there's a stone in it or if it's made of fabric, you can specify what material it should be. For instance, should it be silky, or if it's metal, should the surface be matte or shiny? And if it's skin, you can describe what the skin surface should look like. Should it be smooth, have acne, or anything else? You can add all these details depending on the image you want. The next option, which is one of the most important, is the camera angle. You can search for this as well, find the 10 most cinematic camera angles, and use them in your prompts. The next option is the mood or feeling of the scene, which could be mysterious, energetic, or for example, calm. Our next option is the context or the background of the event. For example, our character and all the things we've described. could be in the middle of a battle, or maybe they're in a peaceful morning, or they're performing in the middle of a very crowded scene. If you mention this, it really helps to better convey the feeling or the idea you have in mind so it can be executed and created more effectively. The next option is cultural influence or inspirations, which you can add if needed. For example, if you want your photo to be inspired by ancient Persian art and to incorporate those patterns and sculptures used in that era into your image, you can add this to your prompt as well. Or for example, if you want it to be a Korean street or to include certain Chinese patterns and sculptures and bring that culture into your image, the next option is extra elements or special features that you'd like to have in your image. For example, maybe you want some flower petals floating in the air around your character, or some smoke, or maybe a mist surrounding your character, or perhaps broken glass scattered on the ground, glinting. You can add these kinds of things as well. And if you don't want them, you can simply leave them out or remove them. But of course, these kinds of elements make your images look much more beautiful. The next option is the technical specifications of your images, like what they were shot with. For example, you can say you want a 35mm lens with a high depth of field, or maybe you want your image to be 8K with high quality and detail. These details help the AI avoid creating a low quality image and instead try to generate something that resembles, for example, a 35mm camera lens shot, rather than just making a random low resolution, poor quality image. The last option is composition, where you can specify where your character is positioned in the image. For example, it could be the rule of thirds, where the character is placed on the left or right side of the image, or it could be a central framing where the character is positioned in the middle of the image. Now, when I say character, I don't just mean a person or a specific individual. Your character could, for example, be an animal, or it could even be the background, maybe a building that you have in mind as your main subject, not necessarily just a character. So I asked ChatGPT to give me an example, and now we'll go over that example together. After that, we'll create its image and see how it turns out. The example it gave me is a female cyberpunk detective. Her pose is standing in the rain, and her action is holding a glowing umbrella. Her outfit is a long leather coat with neon accents. Her facial expression should be serious, and her accessories include cyber glasses and a tech-enhanced belt. The setting is a street in Tokyo, and it should be dark. In the background, it says there should be some neon signs. The overall tone of the photo should have a purple and blue tint. As you can see, the image style is specified as digital painting, meaning it should be a digital artwork. The lighting is described as having a soft glow and being misty. For the surface of the image, it specifies that there should be a wet, reflective ground. The camera angle is also specified to be from below, or a low angle. The mood or feeling of the scene is described as mysterious and tense. The text or context of the scene indicates that someone is investigating a crime scene. In the cultural influence section, it says that the inspiration should be taken from the movie Blade Runner, and under additional elements, it mentions that there should be some holograms floating in the air. In the technical details section, it specifies that the resolution should be high and the image should have depth of field, and finally, in the composition section, it states that the framing should be from the right. Alright, let's go ahead and test this prompt together to see if we can actually create our image as well as it sounds. The first model we're going to test is ChatGPT's own image generator. We'll give it this prompt and ask it to create the image. So the image it created for us is square, but since our prompt has a lot of details, it's better to review it in vertical format. So I'll ask it to generate it again. But even if we check this current image, almost everything we wrote in the prompt has been implemented, like the holograms that are floating in the air, like the umbrella that's in the scene, and now it's rainy. The digital glasses he's wearing and the neon sign behind him, and we can see a mysterious, rainy and foggy atmosphere. But in the vertical version, it also did a pretty good job, except it couldn't quite get the shape of the umbrella right. But overall, it fulfilled about 90% of our prompt and created a good image for us. Alright, the next model we want to test our prompt with is Flux, which you can find on the Create AI website. If you go to the image section, you can create 7 or 8 images per day. You can enter your prompt and also specify the image size, which can be either horizontal or vertical. As you can see, each time you submit your prompt, it gives you 4 images, some of which are better than others. Some of them might not even be close to your prompt at all. Now, as you can see, the Flux model does a good job of executing the character's style, their look, the way they're holding the umbrella, the rainy atmosphere, and the composition we asked for. The only thing it couldn't create for us are the holograms we wanted to be floating in the air. Now, using the same prompt, we can also generate images with several other illustration models on the FreePic website to see how each model responds to our prompt. But I think FreePic only gives you a very limited number of credits for image generation. And if you want to use all these models, you'll definitely need to get an account. Alright, the first illustration model we want to test on the FreePic website is Google's new model, Imagen 4 Ultra. I'll create all the images in a 9:16 size so we can compare them more easily. The next model is FreePic's own model, which is MistPic 2.5 Fluid, and the next one we'll test is Ideogram 3. Alright, as you can see, Imagen 4 Ultra has created a cool image for us. She's holding the umbrella well, and now the holograms are floating around her. The atmosphere is mysterious and misty, with neon signboards behind her, and as you can see, her umbrella is glowing. And now it's even created some holograms on the umbrella for us. And overall, it's a good image. It's captured about 90 to 95% of what we described in the prompt. Well, the next image is made too for us using Ideogram 3. And now it's more or less created the holograms around the character. And it's captured the umbrella really well. Her hand is holding a glowing umbrella. And she has that investigative, research-oriented look. And as you remember, in our prompt, we had written that there should be some neon folds on her clothes, which it has executed really well. And her glasses and belt have also turned out cool. The only problem it has is that it hasn't managed to create her legs well at all, and now half of them are inside the ground. And the color and lighting of the image are also very raw, and I really don't like its color. And this is the image that FreePic's own illustration model Mystic Fluid 2.5 has created for us. Here is the character's outfit, and overall, it has created the character itself relatively well. It has managed to create the neon look of her outfit, the digital glasses she has, and her umbrella, which has a glowing effect quite well. The holograms around her and some signs placed on the ground which indicate that this is a crime scene are also well done, and it has managed to convey the investigating aspect in its own way. If you look at the ground, it's shiny, and it has perfectly recreated that reflective wet surface. And now, the foggy atmosphere has also been created for us in exactly the same way. Alright, now let's ask ChatGPT to give us another example so we can review it together and thoroughly examine all the details of this prompt structure. So it created another character for us, and this time in a different setting. Our character is an elderly desert oracle whose pose is standing on sand with one hand raised, and the action is that he is now channeling either wind or some kind of magic. His clothing is an ancient robe adorned with some ancient patterns. For his facial expression, it says he should have a wise look, and his accessory should be a wooden staff with a glowing crystal. As for the environment, it specifies that it should be a desert setting, and in the background there should be grains of sand and some mirages. Now copy this prompt in full and we'll go make the images to see how they turn out. You can also read the rest if you want, and compare them with the images that are generated to see how well each illustration model follows our prompts. First, we'll start with ChatGPT's own model, give it the prompt, and wait for it to generate the image for us. Well, the image turned out pretty cool. Our character is exactly that wise old man, and he's holding a staff. It has crystal lighting, and the background is pretty much the sand, mirage, and other things we asked for. The only bug it has is that on one of the hands, it made 4 fingers, which is a common issue with AI when generating hands and fingers. This is a normal bug that can be fixed with some additional work. The next image generation model is Flux on the Kriya website, which gives us 4 images for each prompt. It's fulfilling about 80 to 90% of our prompt, and here we have the wise old man. The setting is in the desert, and in the background you can see some mirages or things like that, and in his hand he's holding the same luminous crystal staff. But again, the only bug here is with the fingers. In some of the images you can see that either too many fingers have been generated, or for example the anatomy hasn't been rendered correctly. But on the Kriya website there's an option called var, which stands for variation. If you click on that, it will generate 4 more versions of the same image for you, with the difference being that some details and aspects of the image will change, but the overall image will still be the same one you click the variation button on. This feature is useful when you like an image, but for example, you don't like some of its details. By using this option, it will create 4 new images for you and generate new details. Now, using the same prompt, we'll also test the other illustration models on the FreePic website to see how each one generates the image for us. Alright, as you can see, the Adagram 3 illustration model has created a cool image. The character is holding a cane, and there's a wind or some kind of magic forming above their head. Their other hand is raised as well. And the cane is almost glowing and has a crystal with a desert background. In this other image, the cane is designed even cooler. And if you've noticed so far, each illustration model has its own unique color palette and a different style in its illustrations. Even though the prompts are precisely the same, the resulting images are created completely and entirely differently. So you truly need to carefully see, based on your specific needs and the particular image you have clearly in mind, which illustration model you should ultimately use to get the absolute best possible result. Well, as you can see, Google's Imagine Ultra model has created a completely different image for us, which has a bit of a cartoonish style and has rendered the staff really well. The clothing also has really good detail, and the character himself has a distinctly wise and wizard-like appearance. And the last model we want to test is FreePic's own Mystic model, which, as you can see, has created a completely realistic image of an old wise man holding a staff with a crystal on top of the staff and some lights surrounding it. He has raised his right hand, and as you can clearly see, his traditional clothing features some intricate and ancient patterns, and the background behind him is a vast and complete desert landscape. The more precise and complete your prompt is, the closer the final image will be to what you have in mind. This structure explains to the AI step by step exactly what you want. Practice with this structure and write multiple prompts. And if you want, you can even ask ChatGPT itself to help you and generate prompts for you. In the next section, we'll move on to custom GPTs and their applications. See you in the next session.